Here we are today with Richard Baldwin, who's with us at Three Rivers, or actually he's the focus of our attention today for Driver Appreciation Week. And one of the things that we all know, we all hear this phrase that if you bought it, a trucker brought it. And that's an interesting thing. But one of the most interesting things I read today is that it's a statistic, a really interesting statistic from the American Trucking Associations, that 80% of communities in the United States are 100% dependent on trucking for their needs. 80% of the communities in this country. That shows you how important trucking is to the whole country. And here at Cargomatic, of course, it's really, really important to us because we're a trucking company. That's what we do. We rely on drivers. And if we didn't have drivers, we wouldn't have a company. So this is a shout out to all the truckers there this week, and all month, actually, we're going to be celebrating. And you, Richard, are going to be the person who's the representative trucker who represents all of those truckers that we're appreciating. So let me ask you a little bit. Tell me a little bit about where you're from.
I'm originally from Long Beach, California, and a little bit about myself. I went to school here in Lakewood, California, and I graduated from Lakewood High School, and they were known as being Lancers. So I'm kind of a Lancer in the trucking industry as well.
So what were you good at school?
I was good at everything. I played sports. I played basketball and football. Academics wise, I was in the Renaissance program, which is a program designed for students who have a GPA of 3.5 and above. So I was in the 3.8 range. So I actually graduated with a medallion. So in order to qualify for a medallion, you got to have at least 280 credits above. So I actually I'm a bit overachiever. So when I like to go in and everything, instead of giving 100%, I believe in 100%, 110% all the way.
After you finished high school, what did you do?
Well, I decided to jump into the work industry. So, needed money for the car, gas, things like that. At the time, the financial aid for schooling was very low. So I had to work part-time. So I was working part-time and going to school. And then, work became full-time. So school became part-time for me. So, so I've actually started in the retail industry. And when I restarted in the retail industry, my first job was at Toys R Us, and they were located in Signal Hill, California. So I applied for a seasonal position, and I started there in November for Christmas. And, me being the hard worker and overachiever that I am, I was able to go from seasonal to transition to a full-time employee. So I did a full-time 40-hour work week. So I worked dockside, loading and unloading the big trailers, the product from Toys R Us, from the dock to the warehouse. And then I did that for a couple of years. I was at Toys R Us for 3 years. And then after 3 years, my brother-in-law is in the trucking industry, and he was a dock manager. And I transitioned from Toys R Us to the loading docks out in Commerce, California, which is to Los Angeles, California. And I started there as a casual, and I would unload the 18-wheelers and the 28-footers of different freight from small mini trains up to big industrial tires and I used both this forklift as well as the squeegee. So the squeegee, we used for when the tires were really massive and excessive. We had to use that to remove the tires from the truck. And they were local LTL freight company. So the drivers picked up the freight during the day. And then I started in the afternoon from 4 p.m. on unloading the product and placing it in its designated final destination, which could be from anywhere from Texas to Florida to Alabama for that the drivers come and deliver the product. So I was there for about 5 years. I started there. And then I transitioned from unloading the trucks to actually loading the trucks. So I would load the trucks with freight. So pallets, double stacking pallets and product, and then go in high and tight so that the trailer could deliver all the product fast and efficiently. And I had to make sure that the first 24 foot was not overweight. So I had to use weight distribution and math came into equation and things like that. So I kind of playing before they had Tetris. I was playing Tetris inside the trailer with product. So
how do you manage to do that? How do you make sure that the load is actually in there in the right way?
well, basically before you load the product, there's a manifest for each product that goes in there. So let's say, for example, if it was, a driver picked up a load that had 4 pallets, and depending on the weight, obviously, you want to put the heavy product on the bottom and then stack the lighter one on the top. So based on that manifest, you kind of want to keep the product within itself. So once it goes to its final destination, it goes to a distribution hub, and they're the ones that take the product out and sort it and organize it. So we did have manifests for each product, and it was the weight as well as the quantity. So I knew, how many pallets I had, how many pounds it was. So then use the weight distribution from there.
How long did you spend learning to load?
I spent about a little bit over a year. So again, when I was stripping for the first few hours of my shift, unloading trailer, and then once we were done unloading, I would help the actual designated loader of that container load the freight. So he would basically drive the product in with forklift, and then I would come in and fill in the small crevices and everything from the middle to the top to the sides of the loose freight. So I would put it in there. So it was 2 of us loading the truck. So me, after helping so many people load and stuff, that's how it became. I'm a more visual person. I'm like hands-on as opposed to book smart. So I was able to learn that way. So yes.
So just a very quick question, just a throwaway question, really. How long does it take to actually unload a truck? And on the other hand, how long does it take to load one?
It depends again on the freight. If we're talking about small little mini boxes of tiny little trains that you put together, those were thousands and thousands of pieces. So some orders again were a few hundred pieces, but then the biggest order that I can remember was 4,000 pieces. So the time limit, we're talking about hours, because that stuff product is stacked from the floor to the top of boxes. So those take a little bit longer. The product that was strictly on pallets, again, with forklifts and pallet jack, you can unload it within an hour, 45 minutes. It all depends. Again, and then of course the time's going to vary if it's a 28-foot trailer or a 53-footer. So a 53-footer, obviously, you have more freight, things like that. So yeah.
Yep. So you're essentially doing sort of transloading in that process. Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right. So that's a really interesting thing. A lot of people might think, this person's a driver. That's all he or she knows is how to, do the wheel, put it in gear and take off, and maybe use the brakes now and again. But what this means is that you really know what it is you're hauling. That is, you have a visual in your head of all that's behind you as you're going down the road. That's a really, really interesting.
Yeah, and actually after the freight, I actually was 25 years in IT. I was an IT professional, so I was in the corporate world as well.
Oh, really?
Yes. So my background strongly is IT. So I'm kind of a tech guru, you could say. So I did 25 years of that. I worked in manufacturing, distribution, as well as with radiologists, Salesforce, the sales VPs and things like that. I helped them with their laptops, their tablets, their personal cell phones. I did copiers, I did printers, you name it, I've done it in the technical side. So I definitely, yes.
You've had a personal experience basically of the entire supply chain.
I have.
From manufacturing at one end to distribution and delivery at the other end.
Correct. And that led me to trucking. So years later, after IT, I decided to come into trucking. So
that was going to be my next question. Our company is all about IT. This is the main thing for us. This is our bread and butter of how we use IT and all of this other technical stuff to get things where they need to go quickly, cheaply, and efficiently. So you're an ideal person for us. But let me get back into now. When you were a kid, did you ever have dreams of driving a truck, or did those dreams or thought ideas come later?
When I was a little kid, I actually was really fascinated with tow trucks. So I wanted to be a tow truck driver. When I was a little kid, I had a bunch of tow trucks and seeing the tow trucks on the roads, the small ones to the big ones with trucks. So not so much of the of the loading and unloading and the freight wise, but just trucks being, again, small tow trucks to the big tow trucks that haul semis and buses. I grew up close to a bus station, so I've seen lots of broken down buses and tow trucks come through, drive through the neighborhood, towing those big buses home. So yeah, that's how I got fascinated with trucks.
So did you have experience driving other kinds of trucks before you got into big rig?
I did. I had experience. My first experience, once I transitioned from IT, is I decided to, roll up my long sleeves, remove the tie, take off my slacks and everything. I decided to go into a box truck. So I drove a 26-foot straight box truck, bobtail. And my first experience of that, believe it or not, instead of driving local here in the LA County, I actually decided to go OTR, which is over the road. And I started way back east. As far as New Jersey, I started off in Pennsylvania, and my first load I picked up was in New Jersey. And then after I picked up the freight, it was for a company called Samuel Adams. So I was picking up the old beer totes. So that was my first pickup and delivery was the Sam Adams. And I drove from Pennsylvania to Ohio.
Before you got in that truck and started driving, you had to have some training, right?
Actually, believe it or not, the good thing with the box truck, your regular Class C, you're able to haul up to 26,000 pounds. So since it's a 2-axle vehicle, it's commercial, but it's 2-axle. Use your regular Class C license. So the box truck that I drove was a 26-footer. So that truck was 16,000 pounds gross. So I could only haul 10,000 would put me at the 26,000 mark, but you never want to, exceed the limit. I kept it under 9,000. So 9,000 was my max weight I can haul. So so I was able to, it was a smooth transition for me. The only requirement was, with the exception of my Class C, was to get my DOT medical card, which is a requirement to drive any commercial vehicle, whether it's a box truck or a semi. Anything commercial over certain 10,000 pounds, you have to have a DOT issued medical permit. So that was the only requirement for me to start the box truck. I drove the box truck, from New Jersey to Ohio, and then from Ohio back to Pennsylvania, all through the eastern states I drove. When during those times, as being a driver, you're allowed only a certain amount of hours you can drive. So I couldn't exceed over 11 driving period. And then I had to have a 10-hour rest period, 11 hours from my start time. So I spent a lot of times in the truck stops. So where the semis go to rest, and when they're out of hours, they go to get their sleep, they get the rest, they, recharge the batteries and hit the road again. So as me staying in the truck stops, I was surrounded by semis. So I was fascinated with the semis because, they have the sleepers, they had, the refrigerators, they had the microwaves, they have their mini motorhome on wheels, you could say, which is so it's more like a workation for them because they get to travel and then they get to spend their time sleeping. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have that, because I was in a straight truck. So it was a day cab truck. So I couldn't sleep in those or anything. So long story short, your mind wanders driving through, having these long hour drive days and put it many miles on the road ahead of you. I'm like, you know what? My Class A sounds really good about now. So I drove back east. I was supposed to have a week trip back east, and it ended up lasting 3 weeks or not. So I started my adventure in the middle of June, and I drove 2 weeks through June and the first week of July. So I spent 3 weeks of doing OTR back east. This was, believe it or not, last year. So I started looking up and doing research on how to obtain my Class A, and the steps that were needed for me to get that, and the steps for that was for me to actually enroll into a California state approved facility to get your license. So I took all the tests, and then I obtained my commercial license permit. And once you obtain your license permit, there's 4 tests that consist of to get your California learner's permit commercial. And then once you get that permit, there's they give you a 6-month window to obtain your Class A license. So I did all my tests. There was 4 tests I had to take, and then after the 4th test, I enrolled into trucking school here locally in Carson, California.
Yeah.
It's a 40-hour course that you have to enroll in, and I started that course in August. So the end of August, I started that course, and I completed it early in November. So I worked for UPS prior to joining Three Rivers Trucking, and I was starting seasonal, and I drove commercial vehicles for them. So while I was in the UPS, I obtained my Class A license and got my Class A. And since it was seasonal, came the new year, so I'm like, it's time for a new beginning. It's time for me to put that all that hard-earned mileage and schooling and tests, put it to work, and I joined Three Rivers Trucking.
So what kind of driving are you doing now? Is it OTR? Is it drayage?
No, I'm driving local here for Three Rivers Trucking, and what I do is drive 40-foot reefers here. We drive reefers here at Three Rivers, and we do loads, we do deliveries, and we do empties. So
are you going in and out of the ports?
We are going to the ports as well. Yes. Whether it's taking an empty out of the port, taking a load into the port, we do it all. And we have here, we have the LA ports as well as the Long Beach ports. So we do all of them. And yes, and that requirement is a TWIC card, which is government issued to obtain that port access.
How does your day go as a trucker these days?
The life as a trucker, how it starts off is, obviously is getting here to the yard, which is local for me, which is in Long Beach, California. So that's a good thing. So basically, the morning consists of it's routine every morning. So basically, you want to come here to work, have your work, go get the mentality first. That's very important. You want to have a very positive attitude. Make sure you get a good night's rest, and you wake up on the right side of the bed. Because if you don't, that will definitely affect your behind the wheel for sure. So consists of, again, starting the morning off, being thankful that you woke up, getting to work, you're able to come to work, and then prior for us hitting the road, we have to do what's called a pre-trip inspection of our vehicle. And what that is just checking your fluids, checking your tires, checking your lights, your horns, your wipers. We have a whole checklist that we have to go through, which takes about 30 minutes. They give us 30-minute hour window to complete all those steps. So we have to go through and make sure we check thoroughly all those pre-trip inspection sheets. And then once the inspection sheets are complete, we have to sign off on that. And then we actually are, once we're ready to go, we inform dispatch that we're up and ready, truck's ready to go, gassed up, and we're ready to start moving freight product. So once we are dispatched on our mobile device, which is an iPhone for us. So we have an iPhone app that we use that our dispatchers can relay our loads via the cell phone. So definitely technology again comes into play here. So you got to be handy with the phone, handy with the app that we use to go pick up product as well as deliver product. We have to scan in the BOLs, the bill of ladings for that product, and make sure it's delivered on effectively and with no damages or anything like that. So my morning starts at 6:30. So we're 6:30. So we pre-trip from 6:30 to 7 a.m. And by 7 a.m. we're ready to get them rules rolling.
Let's suppose that in your pre-check you find something's not right. How does that get fixed?
What we do is we document it on our sheet, our pre-trip sheet.
Yeah.
So if it's something that's not urgent or a safety issue, it can be fixed at the end of the day. But if something that requires urgent fixing, like a flat tire, or the motor, something wrong with the motor, a big safety issue, obviously, we have to notify our mechanics, which is another good thing about this company, is that we have our own mechanics on site. So they're able to fix the issue very quickly, as opposed to having a mobile service or us having to take it somewhere and get it fixed off site. It's fixed here on site.
So on a typical day, where do you go?
It's a typical day. Again, if our dispatch, say for example, we're picking up an empty from a container yard, then basically what we do is we have our own chassis here, on site at Three Rivers. So we go and hook up a chassis, and there's 2-axle chassis, and there's also 3-axle chassis. So depending on what the load is and the weight, will determine if you need a 2-axle or a 3-axle. So say for example, in the morning we're going to go to a container yard and pick up an empty reefer. Then we just take a 3-axle. We go get we get our bill of lading. We go to the container yard, pick up the reefer. We have it set to a certain temperature, depending what the commodity calls for, as whether it could be poultry, fruit, or anything like that. Then we'll determine the actual weight of the reefer. So then once we do that, we drive it back here to the yard. And then once here at the yard, then we park it, and then our second move, we can get dispatched for delivery. So delivery could be, meat, poultry, it could be fruit, it could be vegetables. You name it, we haul it all.
So let me ask you, when you pick up an empty reefer, refrigerated container, you're getting it empty. So where do you fill it up, or do you?
Well, we fill it up here on site at Three Rivers. We have a loading dock here that the LTL drivers from out of state come over and unload their product. And then the empties that we pick up, we load the product, and then we make the delivery. So again, we're doing multiple things here at Three Rivers. Picking up empties. We pick up loads from the port, bring them back here to the yard, and then we deliver them as well.
So how many loads a day would you be picking up and delivering, whether it's an empty?
It varies. Again, it's sometimes there's empties, a lot more empties than loads. So we juggle between the both. Obviously, a load, is more value, and it's definitely more quicker response time for that. So depending what the load is and delivery, we make those deliveries as well. And we deliver all over Los Angeles County as well.
What do you most enjoy as a truck driver now, doing what you're doing?
Again, me, having the loading dock experience, from unloading trailers to actually loading trailers, that's obviously where all the product and stuff happens. And now I'm took a complete 180 as a behind the wheel of driving that product now. So I like the fact of not being in the corporate world, as far as in the office setting, cubicle, things like that. I like being behind the wheel, being out on open road, just driving. That's a big. I enjoy driving. So again, and when you're in this industry, you have to love driving, and which comes with the fact that good. Us being in LA County, you got to deal with the LA traffic. But luckily for us, but luckily for us, we actually we have a interstate here that we use, the 103, and our yard is right next to the 103. So we're just driving up the 103, which is Terminal Island Freeway, which has access to all the LA and Long Beach ports. So that makes it a real convenient and fun. So, and then you get to be on the road with other truckers as well. And you're representing our company, Three Rivers. You get to see all the multiple companies that are driving as well. The drivers coming in from out of state here to our yard. It's definitely fun. Yes. Now, as we discussed the good sides of it, now that leads us into our next topic, which is the least favorite part of trucking, and that is, I'm sure any trucker, you can do a survey, and 99.9% would say the wait times. It gets very, very hectic. Yes, I mean, you can go from, like, we're talking literally within 30-minute window, so you can be in and out of a port in 30 minutes. As the longest I've sit at a port is 6 hours. So it becomes very, very frustrating just the wait. And again, here at Three Rivers, the good thing I can say here is we have really fast turnaround unloading and loading times. A lot of the drivers do speak of that here, that Three Rivers here is really fast about unloading stuff. So the wait times here are a lot less than other places. So, other places you can spend up to, 2 or 3 hours waiting. So that the only downside of trucking is just, you got to have a lot of patience, and in your days you can go from a smooth day to where you're in and out, where other day you might do 1 or 2 trips, because again, It all depends on the wait time. So
yeah. Well, again, if driving is your thing, if that's why you're doing it, if you love driving, the last thing you want to do is not drive. All right. You don't want to be sitting there, with your engine.
Yeah, you definitely want to keep the wheels rolling. When the wheels are not rolling, you're just waiting. So
So what do you do when you're sitting there for 6 hours?
Just again, when you're driving, safety is a big number one factor. Is
Yeah.
you got to be a safe driver. You got to be cautious. So you can always never let your guard down. Whether you're waiting parked, you always got to watch out for other truckers and things like that. Especially in the ports, you have a lot of heavy equipment moving, things like that. So you always got to be observant. So my head, instead of being on the Rubik's cube looking down, I like to have my head straight and on swivel to make sure safety is very important, because again, we're just sitting there. So someone else can be driving and can hit us.
Yeah.
We gotta, you don't want to get caught with your head down unexpected. You kind of want to, the only thing you can do is just stay in brace, and it's better to stay safe and brace than to, so yeah. So I'm constantly reading, looking up, how my day went yesterday, things I can do to make it better. Things I could change, I would change, things like that. So each day is different. You never have the same day. It doesn't come to routine. Every day is different.
So you have a real sense of pride then in the fact that
yes.
not only are you sort of living out your dream of driving, but you're actually delivering the good stuff that people need. And that must be a really good feeling. And when we have this national, truck driver appreciation week, it's like, all right, it's 1 week, couple of days really, but really we ought to be thankful every day. There are days I look around, I hear that saying about if you've got it, a truck brought it, and I'm thinking, my pen, my cup, everything, and you begin to realize this whole supply chain, and then you realize it's all about people, and it's all about people like you. And so what I'm going to do here is put on my Cargomatic cap just for one reason here. I don't really need it on here inside, but I'm going to take my cap off to you and all of the other people who are out there driving trucks, for those who are driving for the country, because you're really, really doing amazing work. And to have such a smile on your face as you do, it makes it seem like, well, okay, this is really, really a cool thing. It's all synergistic, and everything is going the way it should. So let me end here with one sort of big question. A guy like me, or even somebody a lot younger, may say to you, hey man, how do I get into this business? How do I become a trucker like you? You're talking maybe about a kid who's maybe there in Wilmington or in Carson or in San Pedro, who sees you at a stop sign and shouts up to the window and says, hey bud, how do I do this? What am I going to do? He's like you were when you were in Long Beach watching those big tow trucks come by. So what do you tell a kid like that? What's your advice?
My advice to the kid is to appreciate each day first, do good, have a positive attitude, and definitely sky's the limit. If your passion and dream is driving a truck, you work hard and you don't stop until you get it. So that's my advice, and to anyone looking to get into the industry, it's a great industry to get into. I love trucking. Again, as my story reiterated, from loading trucks to unloading trucks, now it comes full circle. All the studying, all the hard work paid off, all the ambition, and it's definitely a good career to get into. And like you say, supply chain is huge. It moves the country around, and not locally, internationally, everything. It starts and ends in a container, whether it be us hauling the container with our trucks or it going on a train as well. So, but definitely sky's the limit. And if that's your passion, have a positive attitude and just go for it.
Well, Richard Baldwin, you really are, as I said earlier, the complete package. I mean, the fact that you know these trucks from the front end to the back end and all the loading and unloading and the rest of it, you know what you're hauling, but most of all, you really are conscious of what you're doing. You've made a very strong, conscious decision to do this. And it's really, I feel a sense of pride in just listening to you and that you're working for our country. And it's just an amazing experience just talking to you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to share my experience. And hopefully this video touches a lot of people who are thinking into industry. Now they say, you know what, if he can do it, I can do it. And he motivated me. So that's my passion every day, is to motivate everyone. I like to come and have a smile, positive attitude, and get it done attitude. And again, they say stars are the limit, but you can't have the stars without the sky. So sky's the limit first, and then stars come. So.